will actually be a senior. So welcome to the college office, college application submission procedures for the class of 2024, the rising senior class. And we're going to be reviewing things that I've been talking to you about throughout the spring. We touched on a lot of this stuff in our first meeting in December. It all bears repeating. So please listen closely. And if you have any questions, feel free to use the chat. Can I go to the next slide?
We're having a little technical difficulty. Just give me 1 second, please.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Devine. 1 second. 1 second, 1 second. Yes, you may begin.
Am I starting anew? Okay, so we're going to be going through the information that's most important for you to understand now, so that when you get to September, you're fully prepared and you're not scrambling to understand what has to happen. Okay, so there are, first and foremost, certain deadlines that you really need to pay attention to. And those are, for those of you who may be applying either early decision, early action, or restrictive early action. So it's not a requirement that you apply early, but many students do. And so I want you to have that information close at hand. So the college's early deadlines, for the most part, is November 1st. There are a couple exceptions, and if you are applying to those schools, you will know that their deadlines are October 15th. And off the top of my head, I can say that Georgetown is one and University of Chicago is another that has an October 15th deadline. So pay attention as you're continuing your research and compiling that final list to what each individual college's deadline is for early. So for our purposes in the college office, in order to ensure that everything is processed in a timely manner, we have an earlier deadline that you have to let us know what colleges you're applying to with an ED, EA, or REA deadline by October 3rd. And the reason is there's 352 of you, and unless you let us know ahead of time, we cannot prepare everything that needs to be done. So please, pay close attention to these deadlines because it'll make next year much smoother for everyone. So then for anyone who is also applying regular decision, those start coming due anytime after January 1st. So again, each college has their own timeline. And as you're finalizing your lists, make sure that you understand what those deadlines are. Okay, so for our purposes, just as I said before, we still have to process everything in order to follow your applications that you're submitting. So we would like to have that information by October 30th, the list of schools that you're applying to, regular decision. It does not mean you have to have those applications done, just that we need to have that information so we are prepared for what you need us to do. So you will be receiving an electronic college application checklist, and there is where you will be submitting the colleges that you are going to be applying to and letting us know. The earlier that we have that information, the more prepared we are to follow your applications. So any changes for your application overall, for any regular decision, anything with a January 1st deadline in particular, remember that we're on winter break. So please let us know by December 1st so that we can make sure those applications documents follow before we leave for break. Otherwise, they're going to end up being late when we return in January. Okay, deadlines are crucial. Next slide, please. So, okay, thank you. So for the majority of students, you are going to be using the Common Application for your application process. And so in August, you're going to set up your Common App accounts. Pay attention to all the information that they want. They're going to ask you for, the classes that you've taken and the activities you've been involved in and all nature of things that you're going to have to answer. The good news is you're going to do it once and it will go, that same information is going to go off to the majority of the colleges that you're applying to through the Common App, all of the colleges that you're applying through the Common App. If you're going off the Common App for Georgetown or MIT, something like that, then they have their own process. And again, you're going to have to pay attention to that. But right now with the Common Application, you fill out your application and now you're going to add in the colleges that you're going to be applying to. Now, just because you put the college name in there does not mean that you're done. There is application fees for each college, and you have to be mindful of what that fee is and make sure that you submit it by their standards so that your application can be processed. Okay, most colleges on the Common App require a supplement to the application. So yes, you will have to write your Common App essay that goes to all the colleges, but then each college will have an individual, at least one supplement. Some of them have multiple supplements. And again, as you're doing your research all along the way, I hope you've been keeping track of this. But certainly as you finalize over the summer, make sure that you are paying attention to it. If you do not submit the supplement, then it's going to be an incomplete application and it's not going to get where it needs to go on time. So in order for us to be able to access that Common Application and attach our documents, you need to sign the FERPA and waive your right to review letters of recommendation. That's a standard process. If you do not do that, then you cannot match your Common Application to Naviance. And then we have no way of knowing where you're applying, what you want us to do, any of that information. So please, once you add in the colleges that you are going to apply to, then sign the FERPA and waive your rights and match to Naviance, and you'll be all set. You can add more colleges if you like as you go along, but you have to sign the FERPA and waive your rights as soon as you put in a couple of colleges so that we are all on the same page and not trying to figure out what's going wrong here. All right. Next slide, please. Okay. So, and some of this I already spoke about, but if you are applying to certain schools that have their own forms, they want you to apply through their school directly, such as MIT and the University of California, Georgetown, Maryland, then you have to pay attention to the directions that they give you to do this. Sometimes students ask about the coalition application, and that, our standard is the Common App. So the coalition changes the process. So if it's necessary because the school you're applying to is only using that, then of course we will adapt. But it's much more streamlined and straightforward to apply through the Common App whenever possible, so that we know exactly in real time what needs to happen. Okay, and make sure that you pay the fees online or request an institutional fee waiver if you're eligible. And to those colleges that you're applying to, onto your Naviance account in the and your electronic college application checklist. So, and that's going to be that application checklist is going to be a document that you are intimately familiar with as you go through this process, because any changes go through that checklist. We're doing everything over the past few years electronically, and it's much more efficient. It's easy for us to keep everything in order. It's time stamped, so we know exactly when it is that you have submitted your application checklist, and when it's complete, then that's the order that the letters of recommendation and all supporting documents are submitted. So, I've been saying the whole year that it's important to have that list solid. By the time you come back in September, you should no longer be thinking about where you want to apply. You should be in the process of preparing to apply, if not already, working on your Common App in August. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so the SUNYs, the State University of New York applications, they are also part of the Common App, and it's recommended highly that you use the Common App for that. And for a similar reason, as I just said with the coalition, that when you go off the normal routine of using the Common App, then it's an extra step, many steps actually, because then I have to go into, you have to let me know directly. And then I have to go into the counselor portal for the SUNY, look for your requests, fulfill it, and then put all the documents directly in there, as opposed to through the Common App, everything is linked, and we just press one button and everything goes where it needs to go. So there are fees attached also with the SUNYs, and it's $50 for each SUNY, and only the SUNY fee waivers are acceptable to use if you are eligible and applying through SUNY. And again, easiest if you're able to use the Common App. And it's the same kind of process that I just said for all the other colleges. Now you can fit up to 20 colleges on the Common App. And all this should be very familiar to you because I have been saying it repeatedly. But again, I want you to understand that you can fit up to 20 separate colleges. I am not suggesting that you must apply to 20 colleges. If you have done thorough research and really set up your choices for safety, target, and reaches, and been very thorough in your decision making, you should not need to have 20 colleges on your list, but you can fit up to that many. So certainly you would be able to add in the SUNYs easily on the Common App. And again, just always make sure that you pay the fee. And if you are eligible for fee waivers, then to follow the process in order to access them. Okay, next slide, please. All right, now this is the City University of New York, the CUNYs, which is, again, something I encourage you all to consider because, well, for many reasons. One is that, it's right here and they offer an excellent education. And if you are eligible for Macaulay, then, it's the premier honors program for the CUNY system. And many of our students, our alums through the years have not only attended CUNYs and or Macaulay and done extraordinarily well. And with this application, you can put up to 6 colleges on one application, which is, for a single fee of $65, unless you are eligible for a fee waiver, and then that they have their process where you would get that fee waiver through the college office. It definitely is a very simple way to apply, since we're all part of the same New York City system. They are able to grab your transcripts from the database using your OSIS number. So if you provide your OSIS number, they will be able to retrieve transcripts, which makes things a little simpler. And if you do not provide the OSIS, then you have to let us know that you need the transcript to be sent. For this year and maybe through the following admission cycle, there is going to be, test optional is remaining for most schools, and CUNY in particular. For some of the special programs, this special circumstance, there, Macaulay and Sophie Davis, Brooklyn BAMD still require SAT because those are special selective programs, and very competitive. So, but for the majority of the CUNYs, regular admission, there is no SAT required. So you will decide on your own whether or not you feel like you want to submit that information or not. Okay. And I have no way of seeing if there's any questions, so I'm just going to continue until I hear differently. So next slide, please. Okay. So just to kind of, again, look through the changes to this application cycle for you guys. Again, many colleges remain test optional for SAT and ACT. Certain colleges, and you will know who they are, MIT for one, absolutely requires an SAT. And other than that first 10 months of the height of the pandemic, they have been back to SAT required ever since. So they found that their students that were applying were still submitting the SAT even when they had it optional. So they just went back to it fairly quickly. But the majority of schools remain test optional. And there are some schools that are tracking the data to see what's the difference between the students they accept without the SAT and students that they accept with. And so far as we enter this third cycle, there's no discernible difference. So what that means, we'll have to wait and see. But just to rest assured that anywhere from 40 to 60% of students across the country are not submitting SATs, even though in our locale, the majority of our students do submit them by choice, but it's, it's not the norm across the country. So just things to keep in mind. I don't want people getting stressed about SATs. This is more important, the application process. Okay, so as you're filling out your application, some colleges, most colleges actually, will allow you to self-report. And so, students will super score on their own and submit those scores, and that's perfectly fine because it's unofficial. Once an offer of admission has been offered, then the college, all of them, will require that an actual score report be sent from the College Board. So it would not, it's not like we could send a score report ourselves in your stead. You have to send it directly from the College Board. And just so you know, and again, this isn't new, because again, I've been saying this to you all year, that once you take more than one SAT, all those scores go. There's no way to only send a certain score. And, the colleges are all aware that students take it more than once. I try to remind students it's best practice to not take it more than 3 times, because 3 times everyone understands. But once you go beyond that, there's really no policy on how they handle those multiple SAT scores. So just, keep that in mind. Okay. And again, just as with everything in this process, it's individualized. So you have to make sure that you understand, for example, I think it was Boston University that is, it's test optional, but in order to be considered for scholarship, merit scholarship, they required SAT scores. So even though for admission, it was not required, if you wanted to be considered for merit scholarship, it was required. So these are the kind of things, as you're continuing your research and shoring down on your final list, that you understand, so that you're not coming the day before their deadline and saying, I need to get them the score report like yesterday because I want to be considered for the scholarship. So it's a little messy, and you really need to look. You have to really delve into each school and see what their particular policy is. And this is why it's a year-long process. It's not something that you're going to just start in September. You're going to finish or start to finish in September, but you have to have already been in the process, because otherwise you're going to be very overwhelmed very quickly. So I know that the majority of you have been vigilant about digging into the research, and you have your lists pretty solid. Some of you are already solid, but by the time you come back in September, please, especially if you're applying early, make sure that everything is in place so that you are not stressing about where you're going to apply and how you're going to apply. Next slide, please. Okay, so the college application fee waivers. Some of this has changed over the past few years, so that if you have received a fee waiver from the College Board in the past, automatically you are going to get fee waivers for your applications. So we determine that year to year using the lunch form. So please, as soon as you're back in school in September and that form is available, make sure that your parents go in there, your guardians go in there, fill it out, and make sure that you are still eligible or not. There's no way for me to sign off on anything if I don't have that form, because I have no way of knowing. So please make sure that you have that done as soon as possible. So if, as a junior, you were eligible and received an SAT fee waiver, you will get fee waivers from the College Board in your College Board account. So check that account and see if there are any fee waivers in there, and there will be instructions on how to use those and the codes that are associated with them. And of course, if you have any problem, you can come into the college office, and Ms. Tano and Ms. Donna will help you through that, understanding that administrative process. Okay, so on the Common App, you will be asked whether your financial circumstances qualify you for a fee waiver. And again, if you received one in the past, then you're going to indicate that in your response. So again, CUNY only accepts their own fee waivers, and those are processed directly through the college office. So you need to follow the established admissions process for each college, including any required application fee or approved fee waiver. Otherwise, your application is incomplete, and you may think that you crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's, but if you have not taken that final step to ensure payment either directly or through a fee waiver, then it's not complete. Okay, and again, the financial eligibility is determined by that lunch form. I can't say this often enough, and the one that's filled out during your senior year. So every year we ask you to fill it out, and it's always important, but this is directly important in regards to the application process for college. So please, as soon as you can, make sure it's done. Okay, next slide, please. Next slide. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you did it. Okay. Before I continue on here, are there any questions? So now it's a lot of information. No questions? Okay. So this is going to be a capping of everything that I would like you to do over the summer. And so as of August 1st, make sure that you create your Common App account. Create a professional email address that you are dedicating for use for the Common App and all communications with colleges. Your New York City students account is going to disappear upon graduation, so you cannot use that. You want to create a separate account and something that has a professional tone to it. So if you haven't, or again, many of you have already done this. If you have not done it, please make sure that you do that. And that's going to be what you're going to put on the Common App when they ask you for an email. Make sure that you keep track and check often. I know it's a pain in the neck to be checking your emails, and we inundate you and teachers with the Google Classroom, and all kinds of information comes constantly. It's just a habit that you have to develop, to take a look every day at what's in that email and respond to what needs to be responded to, and discard things that either don't apply to you or not of interest to you. But all college related information needs to be dealt with in real time. So if you got an email from a college to do a certain process and you didn't see it for a couple of weeks, well, you might be late and you might be out of luck with that college. So it's really just developing the habit of checking on a regular occasion any emails that have come in and what is important, take care of. Don't let it wait to the last minute. All right. So also over the summer, you're going to make a final draft of your Common App essay and your personal statement, and make sure that you have it looked at by a couple of people that you trust, preferably a teacher or a counselor or some trusted adult, is the best idea. And so right now, the Common App has not changed their essay prompts for at least 5 years. So, and again, I have been kind of encouraging you, to the best of my ability, to be working on that now, because you can, in theory, have it done before you even leave school, and or at least have a very solid draft ready to be reviewed by somebody as soon as you come back to school. So it's done. To think that you're going to come into school in September and have the time and the wherewithal to complete, start to finish, your Common App essay and personal statement is kind of a recipe for disaster. And I would not recommend that you do that. There's plenty of time between now and September that you can get this draft written and finalized so that it's ready to be added to your Common App soon after, and certainly before any early decisions come through. So make sure that you finalize the list of colleges you're applying to in the fall. And again, this is the work for now. And if you're already finalized, I applaud you. That's wonderful. If you have not started your list, you really need to get on that, because this is what you need to do to be prepared for the application season. And remember that you're going to be in your senior year of high school, which all the colleges care about. They want to know, of course, what classes you're taking now. They want to know the rigor of the classes that you're taking. And if you're doing early decision or restrictive early action, they may ask me in December for a snapshot of where you are in your senior classes. So it all matters. And the mid-years go out in the spring, and then the final transcripts go out the end of June after graduation. All of those pieces to the puzzle matter. It's not that it's over at the end of junior year. It matters straight on through. So please, keep that in mind, that you will have classwork to do and tests to study for and projects and all that. So how much time you have available to be doing this college application, if you're not starting out prepared somewhat from the summer, you might find yourself in a very stress-provoking situation. And I really wish for all of you like a peaceful transition from being a high school student into the application process and then finally off to college. So it's possible with some planning. Okay, I want to take a few minutes to talk again about if you're applying early decision, early action, or restrictive early action. So, early decision, contrary to popular beliefs, is a binding contract signed by you, your parents and guardians, and myself. My signature indicates that both the student and their parent guardian understand this is a legal binding contract that we're signing by November 1st. So that doesn't mean that come January, when you get your financial package from that school that now you've been accepted to, early decision, that you could turn it down. You have made a commitment in November. On November 1st, you've committed yourself to that school, no matter what. And that is something that seems to elude certain students or certain, I don't know, lots of rumors and myths about this. It is absolutely a binding agreement. And although you may be able to, I don't know what you would do with that, but there's always a consequence. So if you back out of an early decision, then the school is impacted. And all of the students that come after you are impacted, because it's a very unethical and big deal to violate a contract that you have signed. And it's not the best plan for moving forward in your career, to start out with, violating a binding contract. So I feel like a broken record on this, but I want people to understand you do not have to apply early decision. You can, if you feel like that's a reasonable decision for you and your family to make, then absolutely, and I will sign off on it. But I need to know that everyone, student and parent, understands that this is a binding contract. So early action does not have any of those limitations. It's not binding at all. It can apply to multiple schools, and there's no binding anything. You get to decide whether or not you want to accept the offer if you are given one. And then there's restrictive early action, which is some of the Ivies, Stanford, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, and then Georgetown, Notre Dame, and University of Chicago adhere to the single choice or restrictive early action. Georgetown calls it early action, but if you read the fine print, it's restrictive, because they all say, pick one of us, and you cannot apply early decision to any school at all. So if you're doing restrictive early action, you are not applying early decision to any school. And in addition to that, whereas with early decision, you can apply early action at the same time, as long as you understand you will withdraw your early action schools if you're accepted to early decision. But with restrictive early action, you cannot apply to any private schools early action, only public institutions. So every state in the country has public institutions, state and city. You are free to apply to any of those early action with restrictive early action, but no private schools. So please be mindful of the limitations that are involved with each of these methods of applying, and keep close track of the deadlines, which is where we started this whole conversation. Okay, make sure that if you have not confirmed your teachers as yet, that you do it before we end up leaving for the summer. You need at least 2 teachers to write recommendations. We suggest one from STEM and one from humanities. And for the most part, I believe at least the 300 and some odd students that I've spoken to have all secured theirs. So please, if you have not, please make sure you do that before we leave. Okay. And this is a suggestion that you create a chart or spreadsheet, some method of keeping track of all of this. Because when you're applying to multiple schools, there's information for each school that's very particular that you need to understand and keep track of. And if it's all in one place, it'll make your life much more manageable than if it's all over the place, or you think you're going to remember, but you might confuse things or whatever it is. So keep track of the important things, the deadlines, the means that you are applying. And there we have added in here the rolling decisions, which are, some colleges have just an ongoing, there's no set deadline for when they close their admissions. They just keep rolling until their class is full. And so whenever that happens, and so if the college you're applying to has a rolling decision, make sure that you understand that doesn't mean that it rolls forever. Everything has an end at some point. So pay attention to all that. Not every college wants recommendation letters. Some want one, some want two, some might want more than that. It's interesting that the University of California system does not require or accepts, actually, recommendation letters at all. Not from teachers, not from counselors. They have, the only time that I ever get a request from a UC school is when they want a little more information about a student, which is rare. Generally, they go by what the student provides for them and whatever that is involved in their application. But they want no recommendations, no reports, and no SATs. They're SAT free, so you cannot submit them no matter what. So all these, little details you need to understand so that you are, right on board with staying abreast of what the college is asking you for. So make sure that you enter your college choices on Naviance in the colleges I am thinking about section. It's another way for us to double check in case there's some discrepancy between what we think you're doing and what you think you're doing. It's a place that we can go to and check that these are the colleges that you put onto the Common App. Okay, so in the summer, some kind of activity, and it's very loose. And as I've been talking to you all during this past, since January, many of you have all different kinds of plans. Some are studying abroad in the CIE program, which is wonderful. Some have internships, also wonderful. Some are doing SYEP. Some people are volunteering or have gotten jobs. All of it is fabulous. Just make sure that you're doing something. And by August, make sure that you are back to this, the mindset of applying to college. So that doesn't mean to stop whatever you're doing in the summer, but to devote time in that month of August to get this prepared for the application cycle. And of course, I'm always encouraging everybody to take time to enjoy yourself, to recharge, to rest, to prepare yourself for what is going to be a very busy, and a good busy, but a very busy time senior year. So that's the charge, that you do some activity, something that you care about, something that you enjoy, something that's meaningful to you. Don't worry at this point in time, don't worry about adding anything onto your resume because you don't think it's good enough or whatever. it's better to just accept where you're at than try to, put things in there in the hopes that it will look different. So there's a lot to be said for just being accepting of where you're at. You've done what you've been able to do, and that's fine. So then we're moving on, and we're just continuing with what we have established. And again, all year I've been saying, please don't add any new activities to your senior year. So whatever teams, clubs, commitments that you have been used to doing along the way, absolutely continue them. But do not add anything new, because it could be the tipping point. And you want to keep yourself, your body, mind, and spirit in alignment. You want to do well in your classes, and you want to be mentally sound. You don't want to be so stressed that you don't know what to do with yourself. So don't overload. You've all been working really hard since you got here. And so understand that the colleges look at you through the lens of our particular school. So they know the degree of rigor. They know what is offered here. They know how hard it is to get in. They know all these things. And so you've been proving yourself all along the way. And don't get lost in trying to now add anything more. It's enough. You've done enough. Okay, so I think we have one last slide. Okay, so these are some of the stats that you're going to need for the Common App as well. And remember that this, eventually, this presentation is going to be put into the Google Classroom for your grade, which I hope that you've been using through the year. I know that many of you have, because you've been applying to the scholarships and the programs and different opportunities that we've been putting up. So please continue, and even more so senior year, because that's when the majority of scholarships are really surfacing. So you don't want to miss out on anything. This is a question. College admission is quite different after the pandemic. Does the school have any recent years admission data? So I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. Admission data of the colleges?
I think admissions, like SAT scores, like GPAs, things of that nature, I think. Where do they find that data?
The college?
The parent and student. How do they find the data of what type of student they admitted?
On their websites. On the school webs, every college has a website, and on their website, they will say these are the stats for the students we accepted this year. And they'll say this is the average SAT score, this is the average GPA. They'll give you that information. So remember that every year is different. So whatever was for the class of 23 might not be for the class of 24. So you have to keep that in mind too. It's such a holistic process. It's not, if you have this SAT score, you're in. If you have this GPA, you're in. It's very holistic. They're looking at everything. They're looking at the school. They look, like the rigor of the school. Like I said, they understand the context of students in our school and what they're expected to do, and they look at the courses that the student's taking. So if they're taking a lot of rigorous courses, then maybe their GPA is not as high as someone else who did not take rigorous courses. It doesn't mean that they're not going to be considered. They will be considered, because the rigor of the classes is very important, not just the number of the GPA. So it's a complicated process, and they want to know what else students are doing that they enjoy. Whether it's that they're in SERP, or they're in bands, or they're been involved with the musicals or whatever. They're artistic. They do internships, whatever it is. They want to know all of that. So it's not a very simple or clear-cut process. So early decision and I hope I answered that. Early decision and early action are very dramatically different. Where they're the same is that the deadline is the same. So November 1st for both, mostly. Early decision is the contract. So, and you'll see one school only. And that school, once you say, well, if the student checks off they want to apply early decision, it will generate a contract that needs to be signed by the student, by the parent, or the guardian. And then finally, when those signatures are done, it comes to me for me to sign off that everybody understands it's a binding legal contract. So early action is an early application, but it's not binding. You can apply, to 3 or 4 schools early and say no thank you to all of them if you like. Or at least you could wait until May 1st to decide. With early decision, you've decided May 1st that you're going to go if they'll have you. So the electronic college checklist is not out yet for you. We're still finishing up this year's senior class. It will be available to you by the time you come back in September. And it will be located in that classroom, the 2024 college Google Classroom.
Yeah, just to add to Miss Devine, it's going to be created as an assignment. The same way you submit an assignment through your other classroom, other Google Classrooms, you'll submit this college checklist back to the college office once it's completed.
So early applications. Students who believe that they are a viable candidate for a particular college and they want to apply early, those are the students that should consider it. The thing with the early applications, especially early decision, it's not just the students in our school. And I think that's some of the confusion for people, that everyone maybe doesn't understand that, say, a school like MIT, who only does early action, no early decision, they accept applications from all over the country and all over the world. So they're getting applications from all different directions, from students who are high achieving, who have been involved in, multiple activities and, really done extraordinary things, as have, some of our students done that level of work. And so you have to really be honest and look at yourself and say, how am I going to hold up in this application pool? If I put myself in a pool with all students who are high achieving and have done extraordinary things, am I going to be able to rise to that level and have my application stand out? So that's something that only the student can really decide. And if they want to come and talk about it, we've been talking about it all along the way, and anyone is free to do whatever they like. I just make suggestions about. I like everyone to be fully informed on what they're putting them, the particular situation they're putting themselves in. So your early applications are students that feel like they're great candidates for this school and, are ready to take that plunge to accept a seat in that school. So the early decision is advisable if the family is on board with that. We will be able to manage this in the worst case scenario, that we don't get financial offering, that we would still be able to manage it. So those are important conversations to have with your parents, guardians, and students. So Is it possible for us to talk about, to disclose what the current class has applied to? Is this about the current senior class?
I'm assuming so.
Okay, so we just actually finished the senior bulletin board that has all the colleges that our students were accepted to.
I guess we could take a picture of it and email it.
Yeah, I actually took a picture today. It looks quite lovely. It's the bulletin board that's closest to the auditorium. So as right outside of Mr. Van Buren's room, there's like a triple board, and that has all the information on this year's senior class. So as far as historical data, that's on Naviance. If you look at you pull up a college through the Naviance list, it'll say the stats of, it won't say which students, but it will say, between here and I think it starts in 2007 to current, how many students applied to a particular school and how many were accepted. So yes, you can access that through Naviance. And again, keep in mind that it's individual. So this current class is unique. Every class is unique. So just because something happens in 2023 with that class does not mean that it's definitely going to either repeat itself exactly, or maybe 2024 is going to have a whole different experience. So it's a good reference point, but it's not a guarantee of anything.
I think that's the last of the questions. If anybody has any other questions, we'll wait around like a minute or so to see if anybody has any other questions, to please put them on the chat at this time.
Off the top of my head, I don't know. We asked the students to fill out a survey, and they have not yet completed that. So it's difficult to give you an answer on that. I don't directly get that information. We only get that from the survey that we ask the students to complete. So right now we don't have that information.
So I'm going to say at this time, that seems to be all the questions we have.
Okay.
So I just want to thank everybody who came and joined us this evening. This is actually available on the Staten Island Tech YouTube channel as well. And all our college information events that will be happening moving forward for the class of 2024 will always be sent and be posted on the Staten Island Tech YouTube site. So I wish everybody a good night. Thank you, Ms. Devine, for all your knowledge.
Thank you for coming.
Bye-bye, everybody.